John Lennon tried to keep playing guitar, tried to keep singing, but his voice cracked. His hands shook. Tears ran down his face and he couldn't stop them, couldn't hide them, couldn't pretend he was fine. An elderly woman in a wheelchair, maybe 80 years old, sat 3 feet in front of him, crying, not sad crying, grateful crying, overwhelmed crying, the kind that comes from being forgotten for so long that you've stopped expecting anyone to remember you exist. She'd reached out and touched John's hand while he was playing In My Life. Just touched it. Gently, like she couldn't believe he was real, like she needed to confirm this wasn't a dream. And John Lennon, 25 years old, one of the most famous people in the world, broke, completely broke, stopped playing, put down his guitar, and sobbed in front of 20 elderly patients, 5 nurses, and Paul McCartney, who was trying not to cry himself but failing. What happened in that Liverpool nursing home on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in 1965 would never make the newspapers, would never be publicized, would never be used for image or marketing. Because the Beatles had asked for it to stay private, sacred. Between them and the people, nobody else cared about anymore. This is that story. October 12, 1965, Liverpool, 2 p.m. Paul and John were home. Brief break between tours, exhausted, missing Liverpool, missing normalcy, missing being just people instead of Beatles. They'd gone for a walk, through their old neighborhood, past places they'd grown up, schools they'd attended, streets they'd played on, trying to remember who they were before the fame, before the screaming, before the world decided they belonged to everyone. They passed St. Catherine's nursing home, old building, Victorian, run down, the kind of place where elderly people went when their families couldn't or wouldn't care for them anymore. The kind of place people forgot about, out of sight, out of mind, warehousing the old until they died. Paul stopped walking, stared at the building. My aunt's in there. Haven't visited her in 6 months. Haven't even thought about her. Too busy, too famous, too important. John looked at him. You want to visit? I don't know, I feel guilty. Showing up after 6 months? What do I even say? You say hello. You say I'm sorry. You say I'm here now. John pulled out a cigarette, lit it. My mom's aunt is in there too. Haven't seen her since before we got famous, before we became too big for our own families. They stood there, 2 Beatles, staring at a nursing home, feeling the weight of their neglect, of everyone's neglect, of a society that warehouses its elderly and pretends they're being cared for. Want to go in? Paul asked. Together? Yeah, let's go in. They walked up the steps. Through the front door, the reception area was dim, smelled like antiseptic and old age and resignation. A nurse at the desk looked up, young, maybe 25. She stared at them, recognized them, started to say something, but Paul put his finger to his lips. Quiet. Please. We're here to visit relatives, Paul said quietly. My aunt, his aunt. Can we see them? The nurse nodded, still shocked. Of course. They're in the common ward, but can I ask you something? What? Could you? Most of the patients here never get visitors. Their families have forgotten them. If you're here anyway, would you consider saying hello to them? Just acknowledging them? It would mean so much. Paul and John looked at each other. Can we bring guitars? John asked. The nurse's eyes filled with tears. You do that? If you want, if they want. We're here. Might as well make it meaningful. I'll get the guitars from reception. Some patients donate instruments. We have a few. She brought 2 acoustic guitars, old, well-worn, real. The kind of guitars that had been played by people who loved music, not people who performed it professionally. They walked into the common ward, large room, 20 beds, elderly people in various states of awareness, some sleeping, some staring at nothing, some in wheelchairs, some bedbound. All forgotten, all invisible, all waiting to die in a room that smelled like disinfectant and gave up. The nurses gathered the patients who could be moved, brought them to chairs, wheelchairs, created a small audience, 15 people, maybe 20. All elderly, all confused about why 2 young men with guitars were standing in front of them. Paul and John sat down. chairs facing the patients. Intimate, close, like a living room concert for grandparents who'd been forgotten by everyone else. "Hello," Paul said gently. "I'm Paul, this is John. We're musicians. We thought we'd play some songs for you, if that's all right." An old man in the front row squinted at them. "Do I know you?" "Maybe," John said with a small smile. "We're the Beatles, John and Paul." "Do you know the Beatles?" The old man's face lit up. "The Beatles! My granddaughter loves you. She screams when you're on the television. You're famous." "We are," Paul confirmed. "But right now we're just two guys with guitars, and you're our audience. So what would you like to hear?" "Something happy," an elderly woman said. "Something that reminds me I'm still alive." They started with "She Loves You," upbeat, joyful, the kind of song that makes you want to dance even if you can't anymore. Some of the patients smiled, some tapped their feet, some just listened, present in a way they hadn't been in months, years, however long they'd been forgotten. Then "All My Loving," then "I Want to Hold Your Hand." Songs everyone knew, songs that had been playing on the radio, songs that connected these forgotten elderly people to the world that had moved on without them. Between songs, Paul talked to them, asked their names, where they were from, what they used to do before they were here, treated them like people instead of patients, like they mattered instead of being warehoused. An elderly woman named Margaret, maybe 75, told them she used to sing in a church choir. "Best years of my life, making music, feeling connected to something bigger." "Would you sing with us?" Paul asked. "On the next song?" "I can't sing anymore, my voice is gone." "Try anyway, please, for us." They played "In My Life," slow, intimate, perfect for Margaret's frail voice, and she sang, quiet, wavering, but singing, for the first time in years, making music again, being part of something again, mattering again. John watched her, really watched, saw the joy in her face, the gratitude, the disbelief that anyone cared enough to include her, and something inside John cracked, because he saw his future, saw Paul's future, saw everyone's future. We all get old. We all become inconvenient. We all get forgotten. Unless someone chooses to remember us, to see us, to treat us like we still matter. Another woman, Rose, maybe 80, was in a wheelchair. She'd been quiet the whole time, just listening, tears running down her face, not moving, not speaking, just crying. A nurse had whispered to Paul earlier, "Rose hasn't spoken in 3 weeks, since her daughter stopped visiting, just stopped coming, no explanation, no goodbye. Rose stopped eating for a while, stopped engaging. We thought we'd lost her, but today, listening to you, she's crying. That's the most emotion we've seen in weeks." Paul noticed, stopped playing. "Rose, are you all right?" She reached out her hand toward John, trembling, wanting to touch him, to confirm he was real, that this was happening, that she wasn't alone anymore, that someone had come, that someone cared enough to be here, in this forgotten room, with these forgotten people. John moved closer, set his guitar down carefully, knelt beside her wheelchair, at her level, eye to eye, the way he'd learned to talk to people who mattered. "What is it, Rose? What do you need?" She touched his hand, gently, like he was made of glass, like he might disappear if she pressed too hard, like he was a dream she was afraid to wake from. Her hand was cold, thin, fragile, covered in age spots and years of being alive, being human, being someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's friend, before she became invisible, before she became forgotten. "You came," she whispered, voice barely audible, cracked from disuse, from weeks of not speaking because who would listen? "Someone came. Someone remembered us." That's when John broke, completely. The armor he'd built, the tough Liverpool exterior, the cocky Beatle persona. All of it shattered, tears streaming down his face, uncontrollable, unstoppable, voice cracking, unable to hold it together, because Rose's words hit him like a physical blow, cut through every defense he had. "Someone came. Someone remembered us." As if that was extraordinary. As if that was a miracle. As if basic human acknowledgement was so rare, it made people cry with gratitude. As if being seen was the greatest gift anyone could receive. And it was. It absolutely was. But it shouldn't be. It should be normal, expected, guaranteed. John looked at Rose. Really looked, saw his own grandmother, saw his future, saw everyone's future. We all get old. We all become inconvenient. We all lose our usefulness to society. And then what? We get put in rooms like this, forgotten, left to die slowly while the world moves on without us? He tried to speak. Couldn't. Tried to finish the song. Couldn't. His hands shook too much. His voice wouldn't work. His chest hurt from trying not to sob, from trying to maintain some composure, some dignity, but he couldn't. He put down the guitar and just cried in front of everyone, not trying to hide it, not trying to be tough or cool or professional. Just broken, absolutely broken by the realization of how forgotten these people were, how invisible, how abandoned, how easily society discarded them once they couldn't contribute anymore. "I'm sorry," John managed to say through tears. "I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm so sorry your daughter stopped coming. I'm so sorry you've been alone. You don't deserve this. Nobody deserves this." Rose squeezed his hand, weakly, but deliberately. "You came. That's what matters. You didn't have to, but you came." "It's not enough," John said, voice thick with emotion. "It's not nearly enough. You should have visitors every day. Your daughter should be here. Your family should be here. You should be surrounded by people who love you, not forgotten in a room nobody thinks about." Paul stopped playing too, moved to John, put his hand on his shoulder, and cried with him. Two Beatles sobbing in a nursing home in front of 20 elderly patients who'd been forgotten by everyone else. The patients cried too, not sad tears, grateful tears, because someone saw them, someone cared, someone broke down over their loneliness instead of ignoring it. That was more valuable than any song, more meaningful than any performance. Being seen, being acknowledged, being treated like they mattered. The nurses cried, 5 young women who'd been caring for these forgotten people for years, who'd watched families stop visiting, stop calling, stop pretending they cared. And now 2 of the most famous people in the world were crying because these patients deserve better. Because everyone deserves better. John composed himself, wiped his face, looked at Rose. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry you've been forgotten. You don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that." "You came," Rose repeated. "That's enough. That's more than enough." "It's not enough," John said. "It's not nearly enough. But we came. And we'll come back. I promise. We'll come back." They stayed for 2 more hours, played every song the patients requested, talked to each person individually, learned their names, their stories, their histories, treated them like they mattered. Because they did matter. They'd always mattered. They'd just been forgotten. When Paul and John finally left, they'd made a decision. They'd come back. Every month when they were in Liverpool. No publicity, no cameras, no press. Just them and the forgotten elderly people who deserved to be remembered. And they did, for the next 2 years. Until the Beatles got too big. Until the tours got too demanding. Until life got too complicated. But for 2 years, once a month, John and Paul visited St. Catherine's nursing home, played guitar, sang songs, talked to people, made them feel less alone. Rose died in 1967, peacefully, in her sleep. The nurse who'd been with her said Rose's last words were, "The Beatles came. I wasn't forgotten. They remembered me." Margaret lived until 1969. She started singing again after that first visit, joined a small choir at the nursing home, made music until she couldn't anymore. At her funeral, they played In My Life, the song she'd sung with Paul and John, the song that reminded her she still mattered. John Lennon died in 1980. At his memorial service, Paul told this story about the nursing home, about Rose, about breaking down, about realizing that fame meant nothing if you didn't use it to see people, to help people, to remember people everyone else forgot. "John taught me something that day," Paul said. That success isn't about how many people know your name. It's about how many people you take time to know, how many invisible people you make visible, how many forgotten people you remember. That's real success. That's real humanity. And John had that. Even when he was being difficult or complicated or impossible, he had that. The ability to see people, really see them, and break down when their pain became too much to ignore. October 12, 1965. Two Beatles visited a nursing home. They'd planned to see relatives. Instead, they played for forgotten elderly patients. And John Lennon couldn't hold back tears when an 80-year-old woman touched his hand and whispered, "Someone came. Someone remembered us." That moment changed them, humbled them, reminded them that fame was a tool, not a trophy. That being seen by millions meant nothing if you didn't take time to see the people nobody else looked at. The Beatles visited forgotten elderly patients. John broke down, everyone cried, not because it was sad, but because it was beautiful, because someone finally cared, because two of the most famous people in the world took time to make invisible people visible. That's the legacy, not the hits, not the screaming, not the fame, but the moments when they use that fame to see people, to remember people, to make people feel less alone. Rose said it best. Someone came, someone remembered us. That's everything. That's all that ever matters. Being remembered, being seen, being loved.